welcome to Eclipse Theory Games, the podcast where we bring you the latest in gaming news, indie reviews, and everything else under the sun. My name is Kendall, and I'm here with my co-host,
Tony, aka Bloated Lux.
All right, all right, okay. I feel like I'm always saying, okay, I'll give it to you, but like after like the 60th one I give to you, I gotta admit they're pretty good. They're pretty
Yeah,
bloated Lux might have turned me around on the whole nickname thing as a concept. Like that's fantastic. Damn, I forgot what the episode's about now. That was hilarious.
Xbox.
Yes, we are doing another console retrospective. It is episode 62, I think. It might be 63. I don't know. Once you get to a certain
Yeah,
point,
we're at 62, and my goal was to somehow, by some miracle, get Jason Kelsey on for the 62nd episode, but that
that
didn't happen, obviously.
yeah, for whatever reason, he's a busy guy. I don't know
Yeah,
with what
you
now.
know
You know what I mean? But he's got this big ESPN deal. I guess ESPN is doing a little better than us. It's fine.
yeah,
Um, speaking of low quality podcasts, I'm gonna say it. I haven't mentioned this like the last like couple months, but my lighting has been terrible. Like I need to get my shit right. Like I'm over here recording in the dungeon, but it's just like a weird lighting placement in my new place, and I'm just like, I just wanted y'all to know I'm not like depressed, sitting here in the dark and shit.
that makes one of us.
Nah, you keep those lights on, my friend, please. We don't need that type of energy for sure, sure. But nah. Speaking of new energy, I want to talk about the Xbox, man. This is gonna be a really special episode, and I think. We never really discussed why we decided to do Xbox next, but I think it's because of
Oh,
like we
I'll
said
tell you why.
last episode, we were kind of talking about how it's like the success of the Dreamcast. So if that's not the reason, I'm gonna say that's a pretty good way to segue. But what was your actual reason?
Well, because out of the big three, they're the newest, and I
Mm,
kind of consider that Xbox, PS2, GameCube era kind of the beginning of like the explosion of the popularity of gaming.
100%. Yeah,
So I wanted to start with the Xbox.
that was kind of the way that it kind of started modern gaming, I would say. Like that's
Yeah.
how I kind of look at it. I feel that. Because Xbox was just like the straight up new kid on the block, just popping up out of nowhere. I mean, like we talked about, a lot of people from Sega actually did migrate to Microsoft and kind of helped them kickstart their gaming division, which is a whole interesting conversation. I don't know how much of a straight up transition that was, but I've always seen it as kind of like the successor to the Sega team. But still, like this is Microsoft who makes, it's literally like a Nokia trying to make a cell phone into a game console. Imagine how badly that would go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think they tried that.
Yeah, it might have been taco shaped. We're not gonna talk about that shit, But yeah, no, Xbox kind of just came out here and did the damn thing. Now, I want to preface this whole conversation with the fact that I never owned an original Xbox. Like, and it's not one of those things like with the Super Nintendo where I had a ton of Super Nintendo experiences. Just like I pretty much had like all those experiences later, just on like PC and other consoles. I was definitely on the outside looking in when it came to the OG Xbox. But I still got my hands on it enough to actually like understand what that console was, and then that's when I started paying attention to games. Like this is when I was starting to read EGM and all these magazines and stuff like that, and pay attention to the business. And I saw what Microsoft was doing with the Xbox, and like you know what it was, what it represented in the game sphere. So I think it's a really interesting one to talk about. But what was your Xbox experience?
So I didn't own one either, but I spent so much time playing it. You remember Allende, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's like one of my other brothers, his family,
Yes,
like a
sir.
second family. So I spent a lot of time over there and he had one. So when it was, we'd be over there, we'd be having sleepovers and stuff, and that's what we was playing. I don't remember if he had a PlayStation. I think he had an Xbox, and it was weird because he was the only person I knew that just had the Xbox.
Hey
And I'm
man,
like, yo, you really took a chance.
I was about to say he stuck his flag down in that side
Yeah,
of things very
dog.
early.
This was like the music equivalent of this would be like buying your favorite artist album because it's a genre you like, but again, buying the whole album and
Right,
you ain't even heard a song.
right. You just
15
know.
tracks, you ain't heard a single song. You just like,
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it like your favorite artist. It's like buying a random CD based on the fact that it's in the genre that you like and the vibes are there. Like, because that's what it was with Xboxes first. Like, you want to talk about a console that just represented the mature side of games, like on the, and I mean that in the edgiest way possible. Like
Yeah,
Xbox was called the Xbox. Like, you know what I mean? Like we don't think about that anymore, but that's like that's the name of a fake game console from a scary movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
respectfully, I
Like
say that with love.
Gamecast sounded more game-ish than
Facts.
Xbox did.
Like and but it works in that way. Like it's the way I talked about other consoles feeling like the archetype of like if it's not a Nintendo or whatever was popping at that time, this is the generic game console like
Yeah.
shell. You know, that's how I feel about, Xbox kind of had a lane that they filled and they filled it so well, like honestly. But I feel like that's going to get broken down as we continue into the conversation. It's always hard to do this pre-part because we don't want to start spoiling all of our rankings and whatnot. But we can just jump right into it as far as console. Just to give the audience a quick recap, console encompasses the look of the console, and as we get later on, it's like the things that it's capable of, the innovations it brought to the table, what made it unique. But mainly it's the look of the console. So, Tony, I'm gonna let you start on this one. What do you think of the Xbox's aesthetic, the console itself?
So 4. I wanted to go 3, but I decided to give it an extra point. I gave it an extra point because it does look like a console, but the problem is that it looks like a dev kit. It looks like the prototype that they just kind of went, you know what? We're taking too long. It looks
Yeah,
decent enough. Let's slap a green circle in the middle of it with the logo and put it out there. Because who the fuck would think to actually have an X in the middle of the fucking console?
it's this is facts. You have some points here. um, I don't know, man. I'm this is gonna be an interesting convo because the Xbox, like I said, is so on the nose about everything it is. Like that's pretty much the clearest example. This joint is huge. It's got ridges
Big
and
as fuck.
like an enormous box. It is a large X box. Like it's a box with a damn X on it. It's damn near shaped like an X. And I think it was going to be, but I don't
Yeah,
think that
yeah, it
works.
was. That was the big silver joint.
Yeah. And then
That was the prototype.
they shoved all the parts in the whole rest of the box, and that X just like ended up in the center. Like that's how I feel about that console. But honestly, man, I respect them for putting that X so much. Like for making it a literal Xbox. I
Yeah.
just have so much respect for that shit.
Because
I
my
I
question
don't
is, if they would have dropped the actual X console, where is all the hardware? Like, how does that
exactly.
work?
That's literally they were like we got to put the hardware somewhere, and they just kept adding shit to the X, and now we got this huge box. And it's full of that fucking because the Xbox was a pretty beefy console, and that's the other side of the console conversation. Like when it came out, it was PS2 had come out first. We'll get to PS2 and the GameCube very soon, I promise. But PS2 had come out first, so obviously it wasn't as technologically advanced as the other consoles. But I always looked at it as PS2 at the bottom, then GameCube, and then Xbox at the top, because the Xbox was just straight up the most powerful at the time. That was his whole claim to fame. It marketed itself like it was a beastly ass console. Um,
That's for sure.
and for that reason, I'm gonna give it a 7. I don't love the way the console looks, but I don't hate it at all, and I damn sure respect it. Like I legitimately think that the design lab was cooking in this, and they were like, yeah, this is what we're doing. And somebody had the same fucking impression as you, Tony. I promise you. And they're like, yeah, no, this is what the fuck we're doing. Put this out on store shelves. Kids are gonna love it. And they did it. So
I mean, it worked in America.
yeah, that's where they wanted to. I honestly feel like Xbox has always just been the console that wanted to sell to Americans. Like you can tell by the
Oh yeah,
aesthetic.
they did from the jump.
Yeah. Like you can tell. I mean, and then they tried to kind of balance that out later in life. It hasn't worked a ton, but you see what they're doing now with Persona deals and stuff like
They
that.
waited too late, man.
Yeah,
They waited way too late.
because
It was
having
like
Persona,
Microsoft's like Miley Cyrus. Like Miley Cyrus came out like trying to be poppy and bubblegumish. Then she went, "Wait, I can cater to black folks." Too late.
yeah,
You gotta get in on that blackety black you invited to the cookout stuff early.
yeah. What you can't you got to get in there and because it's hard to have this conversation without bringing up the Justin Timberlake in the room. He didn't get in there immediately, and then he left.
Nah, but
And
he got with the right people.
yeah,
See,
he
that's the
got
thing. He got in with the right people.
That is facts. That is absolute facts. Like, how do you have that ship's crazy? You had Pharrell on your
Exactly.
first one
Exactly.
and Timberland on your
Every,
second one. Was
not only did he have Pharrell on his first one, he got a Pharrell album that was for Michael Jackson.
yes, literally. They were like, like,
That
bro.
I still blame his people for that. That he would have tore some of them songs up, but
Every time I hear
whatever.
like, man, yeah, yeah,
That
a
shit
lot
pisses
of
me
them,
off.
a lot of them. Fucking senorita, that shit. Okay, but
Yeah.
okay. So now I guess we can move on to controlling, which is also
That's
going
a
to be
one.
great.
So one. Why,
Man, you think
why are
so?
we dancing around this big,
Man,
beefy ass, cheesy gordita sized ass controller, man?
so here's my thing about that. They did redesign the controller, and the redesign was damn near perfect. Like they almost haven't changed it. The Xbox 360 one was the one that was perfect. The redesigned OG Xbox one was a baby 360 controller. So it's hard to,
I'm going with what came out the box. That's a
yeah.
one. Because you knew better. You wouldn't have had to redesign it if you didn't know better.
Ah, listen, man. I'm not terribly mad at it. I gave them a 6, which I feel like is a fair
All little
midpoint
dual
between
ass nigga, you trying to be nice about this shit.
I don't think. Listen, they knew their redesign was solid. I'm giving a lot of credit to. I gave the credit to the PS1 for the Dual Shocks. I can't act like I ain't do that. You know what I mean? So we got to include all the controllers.
See, you
So
staying consistent, I'm staying consistent.
there you go. I'm not
Fuck
mad at
that.
it. I'm not mad at it. As long as we both stay consistent, we'll be all right. But yeah, no, the bulky ass controller. And then here's my thing. I got grown man hands. They're not the hugest hands in the world. You know what I mean? I'm not Kawhi Leonard out here, but. I didn't hate the the big ass bulky controller. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't hate that joint. Something about it ergonomically had an N64 appeal to me, where it's not good, but it just works for me. So, but I say that
Look,
without that
I
didn't influence my ranking at all.
I got normal ass hands, regular people hands. Fuck
Listen,
that shit.
that's who they need to be designing controllers
Yeah.
for, not freaks like me. So I'm gonna give them a 6. 6 is, I feel like they came back so strong that I have to give them a little credit for that. But yeah, nah,
I mean, yeah,
that
we'll
that
get into the 360 thing later, but that is the perfect gaming controller. I
it's
don't think
crazy.
there's a better one.
As a podcast, that definitely kind of like we play a lot of PlayStation. You know what I mean? I think we can both agree on that. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
respectfully, so we can move ahead to games. This one surprised me. I thought my ranking for games was going to be lower than it was. I'll just throw it out there. I went ahead and gave them an 8 for games. I think they have a great lineup of games on the OG Xbox. And I didn't think so when I first started this. I was like, this is probably going to be like the lowest thing I have. But like just looking at the list of dope ass games they have, you know, obviously Halo is the big one, but there's also the Jade Empires and the
Yep.
Psychonauts and you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
man. They had some heat.
Yeah, like the Fables. There's so many, like so much. Ninja Gaiden was like, and then there's the games that we associate with Xbox that weren't Xbox games, so to speak. Because I've talked about it before. There's a lot of there's more of those with the 360. Like I said, we'll get to that conversation, but I feel like Xbox has quite a few of those. Jet Set Radio Future is just as much of an Xbox game in my mind as Jet Set Radio was a Dreamcast game.
Yep.
And same with like Dead or Alive 4. I can see that cover art with the Xbox logo over top of it, just as much as like older Dead or Alive on like an older console. So I gave him an 8 myself.
Yeah, I'm about there 8. I mean, I like you. I was gonna go lower until I actually started to really go through. Dog, Halo was a launch title.
That's
Halo 1
crazy.
was a fucking launch title.
They said we know where we are. That's
That's
wild.
like retroactively, that's fucking insane.
Yeah,
In the moment, it was just kind of like, oh, there's a first person shooter on there. That's cool.
right.
But like really looking back on that shit, that's nuts. And then you got Halo 2 3 years later on the
Man.
same console.
Yep.
Halo 2 was
And
an Xbox title, and that changed
crazy.
everything.
Literally. And I mean, I forgot to mention this with the console ranking, but that game's online. I had to consider that when I ranked the console because like they definitely
That's part of it. Yeah.
yeah. So that boosts both games and console for me. But yeah, Halo 2 in and of itself just kind of like was a magnum opus. There's so much. There's like a laundry list of stuff.
And
You
I
have
mean, you gotta consider the Halo series is really what kind of popularized the midnight release.
that's interesting. I never really thought about that actually.
Yeah, like that. I mean,
The,
it was a thing, because like there was Madden, but like it was early.
right.
That was still early Madden, like when they were still trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
Like Halo came out, and everybody was like, "Oh shit, there's a second one." That's really what kicked off the midnight release thing.
I can respect it, and I feel like the midnight release has somewhat. I don't know if it's died or not, but I feel like I don't be
It's
going to. Yeah,
basically dead.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
a thing anymore.
I'm glad
This
I
is
got to
why we need to
experience
buy
it.
physical.
Yes, we do. Like I'm hearing. I don't know how true this is. I know. Friend of the show, Mega Ran, was tweeting about it.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw that shit.
Yeah, yeah. He was saying how he went to GameStop to get Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Door, and he was talking about how the GameStop employee was saying that this might be the last. What did he say? That this was the last physical release they were getting that wasn't a pre-order, so it would
Yeah,
have to be
if
a
you had
digital
to
purchase.
pre-order to get it physical, which was fucking insane.
Yeah, yeah. Now again, that's not verified. That's something that's heard from somebody who's an employee of GameStop. I used to be an employee of GameStop. I ain't know shit. So yeah, we don't know necessarily what's coming down the ringer. People do hear
Also,
stuff,
congratulations
but
to you for working at GameStop and not having the look.
yeah, yeah. I didn't let it suck my soul out of my body.
Yeah,
Like, and I worked during the bad years. We can. I feel like we should have a conversation, like a real episode about that, because
man.
just we can talk about physical media and game stores because we got some experience. At one point, I wanted to open a store. Like that was something I really was trying to do with James. Like I was telling James, because James used to be my boss at GameStop. Like that was real life the situation there. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, we're gonna move back to games, and one thing that I forgot to mention is Splinter Cell. I want to shout that game out for coming out there swinging during the era of like Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3. You know what I mean? Like that series was directly competing with that game.
Put
I
up points on the board.
honestly like
Boy, they ain't come out there shooting no laying no eggs. Nah. This
nah,
was 25 points a game right here.
they knew what
Right
they
up
were doing.
until what was it? Double Agent, I think, was the one that kind of fell off. And then they came
Yeah,
back with Conviction.
right, right. So and then here's hoping that they'll come back with something new because I think they've talked about the Splinter Cell reboot, right? That's like
Yeah, there's
official.
one coming. Yeah, that no, that
Yeah.
that's a thing. That's a thing.
Okay. Okay. It's one of those that's like ether until I see it. Like we're gonna have
Yeah.
to we have to get that in our hands soon. But shout out to the Xbox, man. Shout out to that game library. Solid eight from both of us. Which brings us to graphics. Um, Now graphics is always tricky when we're doing it because like you if we did it based on today's like standards, it would just be 1 through 10 depending on how old you are. Like you know what I mean? Like like we would just be ranking them based on time of release. So we got to kind of remember that we're keeping like their capability at the time and how much they stand up today. Like that actually is where you get into like what we feel about the graphics as far as like today's standards. But this is actually my highest one. I got it at a 9 out of 10. Um, and for me, it's because at the time, I think the Xbox was capable of setting the standard for graphics. Like as far as consoles go, like nothing was fucking. This is during the era of toxic PC
Daggies.
gamers. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it could get real nasty when you start talking about like
Oh yeah, the PC Master
specs
Race.
and yeah, that was that time. But Xbox, like you said, they came out there swinging, man. They were like, we know that we have the powerhouse console here, and they had me wanting to play stuff that I might not have played otherwise. Like, I wasn't a shooter guy at all. Like, I was a teenager, so I was very biased and very unwilling to sway from my ways. But Halo just looked too cool, man. I just tried it and I loved it. I played through the whole campaign of Halo 1 and 2, and that's special series. So it's a
First
nine
time
for
the
me.
flood show up.
That's exactly what I think of
Frightening.
every single time I mention that game. That is why I mentioned that game. That's crazy. Fire.
Um, I'm gonna go to 10 for graphics.
Nice.
I
Okay.
think that because again, we're like based on what it was in the moment, and I still think the Xbox actually holds up pretty decently.
Did that shit.
Um, relatively speaking for an early 2000s console, but yeah, at the time, man, that shit hit like a Mike Tyson punch, dog. Like
Yes.
turning that motherfucker on and just like seeing the Halo.
Yeah.
Like, it
Legit.
felt like that shit was gonna come spinning through your fucking room.
It's hard to really understand how literally he means that because of like what we see now, but that shit was crazy.
It was incredible. Like that
This
that
was,
opened up something because again, to bring it up, the Jaggies were a thing. Like that was a
yeah,
PS2 like buzzword for
yeah,
a lot of game journalists. Is that was the thing you were talking about? You whether you were up close or you were far away, you could see the little Jaggies on the character models. You weren't
yep.
seeing none of that on the Xbox. Them
It
shit was
was,
smooth as eggs.
yeah, at least for like our untrained eyes and our small
Yeah, yeah.
TVs.
Now
Yeah, yeah.
you throw that shit up on a 4K TV and everything looks jagged. But
It's like, oh
at
my
the
God.
time, I don't know. Like obviously they had the PC type architecture and technology, but they obviously knew how to get something running on the TVs that we had then, where that shit was not an issue.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's an incredibly like powerful and just a good looking game console top to
yep.
bottom. So I gotta give it a 10. I'm not a total Microsoft hater.
I respect it. I think this category did a lot of the heavy lifting on like the console capabilities side
Yeah.
because yeah, that's like the beefy, that's all the stuff surrounding the X. That's what we was talking about earlier.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, so shout out to Xbox for that. Now we got to talk about Impact. Impact is I'm gonna let you start because I have thoughts on the impact of the Xbox, but
So it can't be lower than an 8 for me. So I'll probably say 8.
okay.
Um, because this is the beginning of Xbox Live. This is the beginning of like true online multiplayer,
Yeah,
Halo 2. Like just kind of same thing with like this is kind of where the Dreamcast left off and they picked it up and ran with it. You know, the creation of Red versus Blue and Rooster Teeth. Um, just as far as like giving American audiences a, like you said, mature console, because we weren't really like, I almost feel like God of War existed as a result of the Xbox.
Hmm.
Because again, we got Halo as a launch title, and that was a mature ass game. Like it's colorful, but that was a mature ass game.
Yeah,
It felt like it made Sony look up and go, "Oh, we need something," because they're still coming off the Spyro Crash Bandicoot run
yeah, yeah,
of
absolutely.
platformers. Like they made Jack and Daxter go dark.
Right, right.
So I kind of almost feel like that was the point where Sony said, "All right, this is where we need to start focusing on like more mature single player games." And it makes me
Interesting.
feel like I don't have anything to actually make like
Yeah,
corroborate it, but
yeah.
it feels like everything that we have today from Sony is a result of what the Xbox brought.
You know what? I mean, it tracks, honestly, if you just kind of like think about the trajectory of everything. And again, this was during the time period where we was really like Xbox came out there and they said, we are mature, we are for the adults. Y'all play that kiddie shit. We say
Yeah.
the word shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's really the vibe. So Sony, I'm telling you, they did. This is the era where BMX XXX came out. Like,
Oh
I
my
don't know
God, I
if
forgot about that game.
everyone did because we blank it out, but that was a straight up.
Yeah, I don't think you could rent that from Blockbuster.
I've never played it. I just remember the screenshots, but it was just like topless pornographic BMX like or extreme sports game, and it was
Yeah.
fucking stupid looking. And it was clearly an attempt to just like mature up games in like the most like obnoxious jackass girls on wild way possible. That's where
It's
we
it's
were.
the, it was like that era was the intersection of like the Attitude Era and the idea that everything had to be edgy and
Yeah.
somewhat pornographic in some
Yep.
ways.
And don't
Everyone
forget,
just went to the other end of it.
so you take all those things, combine them, make them somehow feel somewhat authentic, and then splash a dash of like Matrix aesthetic in there. In
Yeah.
2000 and like one, two, bro, you're killing the game. Are you kidding me? Xbox was like, yeah. So
Yeah.
so for me, I'm going 9 with the impact. It's almost a 10 for me just because they stepped in and like imagine if we were having conversations about a big three in rap, and one of the big three was just a motherfucker who decided to be in his opening album part of the big three, and it worked. Like that's what Xbox did. Like they was like, "Hey, we're here too," and we was like, okay, bet.
Right.
Like
Okay,
it's
cool.
crazy because I mean, my Apple can't figure this out. Google can't figure this out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Microsoft figured it out, and they're like 4 consoles in. So I gotta give them a 9 just for jumping out there, not only holding it down and like stepping into the space in a way that's difficult, but um for just still being here. Like no matter what kind of rough patches that we're going through right now,
Honestly,
it,
they shouldn't be. They
it's
shouldn't be. They shouldn't still be here.
it should have felt a long time ago. And I was listening to an episode of Kind of Funny, and I remember Tim saying something like, "If Game Pass is not successful, it's bad for the business." Like he was like the concept, and that's kind of a bold, controversial statement, but to back it up, Game Pass is such a good deal that if you're losing money on it and you're forcing everyone else to do it, then they're gonna also lose money, and we're gonna fucking lose video games. Like this shit's gonna be a problem if everybody's trying to ape something that doesn't work because it's the
Which
standard.
I mean, I understand what he's saying from that standpoint, but by that logic, that would indicate the Game Pass is bad for gaming because
Yeah,
it's
that's I
just kind
mean
of the inevitable point. Like, I
that's
mean,
the idea. If you can't figure out the way to make this make money, then it's not a good thing. Like so, we can have the conversations about that and everything, but the fact remains that they're here and they're like, we're years into the Xbox Series X finally having this conversation. Like, so the idea here is that they've been doing bullshit from the start. Like Xbox Live was a bold push. They
yeah,
made you pay for online gaming. That would have been bad for gaming if it didn't work, right? Like all this shit could have been detrimental to the whole industry. Like that could have been a straight up money grab if they just went in a direction where it didn't improve shit. But remember, PlayStation was free and it sucked. Don't forget that it was really bad.
but see, that's the thing. You know why? Because it costs money to run servers.
Exactly. So like that shows you that Microsoft had the right of it, even if it seemed like a move that wasn't consumer friendly, right? Like they were doing what they needed to make this work. They've been doing that for generations, and it started with the Xbox, the OG Xbox, like the bold steps that they take. That even just like I said, the aesthetics and shit that they went with. It's always been either this works or it fucking bombs everything. Like nobody, if Xbox had failed, we would never get another motherfucker trying to jump out here and make a console because this would have been like some Stadia shit. This is why we don't care
Yeah,
about Luna
that would have
now.
been it.
Yeah, like
I forgot about Luna.
exactly, because Stadia failed so much that nobody fucking gave Luna a chance. If
That was
Xbox shit,
Amazon, right?
yes, Amazon, bro, like that makes more fucking sense than Google to me. Like they got the servers. Like what do you mean? Their shit probably runs like fucking butter. Um, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's a wide point to make. I hope I made it well, but like Xbox takes the big risk and it either knocks it out of the park or like, crashes and burns. And no matter how much we might be seeing shit a little bit on fire right now, they still swinging, man. And I'm curious to see how hard they swing with their next shit. But I remember when they started off and I really respected it a lot.
They swinging with gasoline boxing gloves on right now.
They are, but shit, man, listen. Go out with a Blaze of Glory. That's all I ask. And by Blaze of Glory, I mean put Game Pass on PlayStation. That'd be fucking dope. I don't care. But yeah, and it seems like a good time for us to go ahead and sum up our rankings. So just to give a quick recap of each what we had, I had console for the Xbox at a 7 out of 10. Controller is a 6 out of 10 for me. Games was an 8 out of 10. Graphics were at a 9, and Impact was also at a 9. So that is a total of 39 out of 50. I'm once again giving you a disclaimer, I'm not a mathematician. That includes basic addition. I don't give a fuck.
I got console of 4, controllers a 1, graphics a 10, games and impact both at an 8, which gives me a total score of 31, making it my lowest rated console.
Makes fucking sense.
But like we said last time, are these grades indicative of what you actually think about the shit? And yeah,
That's exact. I was explaining the concept of this series to my cousin, and I was like, we're gonna have somewhat object. It's not a perfect system, obviously, but we're gonna have a
yeah, no.
somewhat objective tier list of our favorite consoles after this. Like, just kind of everything in order. And I want to, and I keep saying I want to see how much it aligns with our favorites versus what we think is the best, because this is supposed to be the list of the best. Like who accomplished what. Um, So with that being said, I don't know if you have your full tier list in front of you right now,
Oh
but
yeah, I keep it all on the same note.
yeah, same. We on the same page. So um, right now at the top of my list, I still have the Super Nintendo at 46 out of 50. Right below that is a PS1 at 45 out of 50. Genesis takes a little dip at third place, 42. Then I have N64 at 41, Dreamcast tied at 41, and then the Xbox coming in at 39 at the bottom. So I wonder who's at the bottom for you.
Yeah. So at the top, I got the Super Nintendo at 47, Dreamcast slightly below that at 43, and 64 at 41, Genesis at 39, PS1 at 36, and the Xbox at 31.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you got some.
And all that's just tracking for me. I mean, that's
Yeah, I feel it. I You're not gonna see a one unless we talking about again the aforementioned Engage. I know we didn't say the name of it, but that's a joint that's gonna
that's
get a
a
one.
one across the board. Dog, if we were average, we'd have to average that out. It'd be ones on everything so that the score could
You
be a one.
you can't give it a one on everything because it had that Tony Hawk game. Yeah, Tony Hawk game was not bad. It had a pretty good port of Tony Hawk 2, weirdly enough. I
That's
think
not enough to bump it off a one.
I think it also had a good Spyro. What a weird
That's
fucking
not
time.
enough. Yeah,
No, we
that was just a very strange.
yeah.
The 2000, like the 2000 to 2007 era of gaming is that's a separate episode.
It is straight up. We might have to
We're gonna
just
have to get
dive.
into that shit.
I feel like the 2000s to 2007 era of everything was just bizarre, surreal life bullshit. Like we gotta,
Yeah.
we can just talk about any aspect, but gaming in particular. Let's talk about Sony's PSP phone.
Yeah, like no, we're really going to do an episode on that because I would be interested in like people who listen to this who are younger than us, who
Yeah,
didn't experience that shit, and just
yeah,
like hearing like what their reaction would be to that shit.
that would be fascinating. I'm not gonna lie, because we were weird. It was weird. We was figuring out pop culture.
Strange time, man.
I feel like the advent of like the internet just made us like always see what the fuck was going on, and we saw
Man,
how weird it was out here. Like I don't know. I blame that
dog.
at Flavor Flav.
Do you remember Black? It was an Xbox game.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
actually really fucking good.
I never played it, but I remember that being one of those games, like those
Yeah,
sleeper hit joints.
that's but see, that's one of the, like when I talk about the mid 2000s being like that third party boom where that was kind of like our indie games. That's the
Mm,
game that I think of because that was a
mm,
really good game that just didn't get the run that it should have. But
yeah,
yeah, man, those third party games in that 2001 to 2006, 2007 era, the indie boom that y'all seeing now, this was that.
that's facts. That is very, very true. You had a lot of people just like that was when random game developers were just cooking. Like you got the
Yeah,
Half-Life 2s and all this crazy. That's when Rockstar put out a licensed Warriors game in like 2005.
and it was incredible.
It was fantastic. Why did they put this
And
game
they've
out?
never done another licensed game since, I don't think.
What the fuck was this? Like this fucking fever dream of an experience. Warriors was not relevant. Did they re-release it or something? Like
No, it
it
was
was
just
just
they just decided to make a game.
a straight up passion project, and it was
I think it might
amazing.
have been like in line with an anniversary or something, but it wasn't like a re-release of the movie or like
It,
upscaling.
you know what it was, bro? You know what the whole explanation for this was, and we're seeing it happen. We saw it happen last generation with the PS4. The PS2 was when we figured out 3D shit. Like
Yeah.
every so often we have an era of video games where we figure out like what we're trying to do with the new tech that we have. You know what I mean? Like that's why Nintendo, NES, and like everything that came before the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era was dope. But Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo kind of peaked like pixelated graphics, like that 32-bit shit was really at its apex.
That's a fact.
N60, N64 and PlayStation had really dope 3D polygonal games. They was all jaggy as hell, but they were really dope. But PS2 was a renaissance of games. Like that's when
Yeah.
we snapped into place. Like you do not get a Metal Gear Solid 2, a Metal Gear Solid 3, like these types of games. Just I mean, as great as MGS1 was, I love it because of how different it feels. The second and third games in that series blew that shit up and opened it up in a way that like really speaks to like the specialness of this. This is why Halo feels so special. Like so,
Yep.
yeah, that era, man, that was a special time.
But we're gonna get into
Facts.
GameCube next week.
I can't wait. I can't
Yeah,
wait. And
that's the one, and I want to do that one because that's like the redheaded stepchild of that era.
I
Obviously,
can't,
PS2 is like the goat of the era, so you want to do that last. But yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah.
GameCube's gonna be an interesting one
I
to grade
love
out.
I love the GameCube, and I can't. I'm just that spoilers, I guess, but I can't wait to talk about this because even with me loving the GameCube, I gotta actually stop and think about how I'm gonna rank that as far as impact goes, because that's an interesting time for Nintendo.
Oh, wait till you hear him. I already know.
Yeah,
I already know what it is.
yes, that's gonna be very interesting, man. I cannot wait for that. That's gonna be a dope episode. But you're gonna guys are gonna have to tune back in next week for that. I think this is a good place to wrap this one up, man. But in the meantime, let us know what you think of the Xbox, what some of your favorite games were on the OG system. How you
Shout
felt
out to
about
Fusion
Microsoft.
Frenzy.
Oh my! Shout out to Fusion Frenzy. Like there were so many little weird shit. Like it was just doing
Yeah,
weird shit. Tell us what your favorite weird games on the Xbox were. Stuff that we might have missed out on that we might have like forgot to throw in at the end here. Definitely leave a comment down below on YouTube, man. Make sure you like and subscribe or rate the podcast if you're on podcast services. Because we definitely want to hear that feedback. We want to make this show for you guys. We say it every week. So until next time, man, I'm Kendall. This is Tony. And make sure you keep gaming. Take care.